Today, the goal of today's discussion is to help you prepare for the new regulations in India that go into effect in January 2018, so just a month away. We will also touch upon price controls, although we'll just may not have too much time to go into details of that topic. So a little bit about us. RegDesk provides medical device companies with the absolute fastest way to get to market and get market approvals globally. We do this through machine learning, peer review, and artificial intelligence. With us today, we have a leading expert from India, Mr. Kurikose. Mr. Darley is a medical device regulatory consultant from Bangalore, India. He has 3 decades of experience in the regulatory and quality management domains. He formerly worked for a large international medical device company where he held several management roles as a plant quality head, global quality systems engineer, and RA manager for all of Asia Pacific region. He holds an RAC and is a certified lead auditor for ISO 13485 and ISO 9001. Before we begin our discussion this morning, I'd like to turn our attention to our attendees. Thank you so much for joining us. At the end of this meeting, we'll hold a brief Q&A. We encourage your participation, so please refer to the chat button at the bottom or top of your screen. Just make sure it should be on the right-hand panel. In the interest of time, please submit your questions throughout the course of our talk, and we'll try our best to address as many of your questions as we can. If we're unable to do that, we will follow up with you via email with those answers. Also, you'll be prompted to fill out a survey at the end of the webinar. We would appreciate your feedback. The survey shouldn't take more than a minute to fill out. It's just 2 questions. We have a lot to discuss today. So in today's conversation with Mr. Darley, we'll get an overview of the regulatory landscape in India, how you can best prepare for it, and like I said, just touch upon what price controls are. Mr. Darley, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Hi, Priya. Thank you very much for that wonderful intro. And a warm hello to all the participants here. In fact, I'm very glad that I'm able to present the details of the new medical device rules of my country to a global audience.
Wonderful. Well, since we have so much to discuss, let's begin by getting an overview of the new device regulations in India. Again, they're going into effect in January, so just a couple months. We're all aware that India is finally regulating medical devices, much awaited. Can you quickly give us an overview of what to expect?
Sure, Priya. India, in fact, has been regulating medical devices through its Drug and Cosmetic Act of 1940 and the Drug and Cosmetic Rules of 1945. These 2 regulations are basically pharma-centric and hence do not match the device control regimes followed elsewhere in the world. Also, not all the devices are covered that way. Only some 23 devices are being regulated currently. With the introduction of IMDR, India too will join this league of countries which have separate pharma and device laws. To start with, the current group of devices that are regulated under the Drug Act and some IVDs are being brought under the new IMDR. Gradually, this list will go up till it finally encompasses all the medical devices manufactured and or distributed in India.
Thank you. So I know I keep saying January of 2018. Can you just quickly specify when exactly in January do these regulations go into effect?
Actually, this was published in the official gazette on 31st Jan of 2017, and this will become effective from very 1st of January 2018, okay. The beginning of the year.
Got it. So not much time left. I understand that currently in India, there is no system of classifying the devices based on their risk profile. Will the IMDRs introduce the system of classification for devices?
Yes, like all other modern device regulatory systems, IMDR too mandates to classify the medical devices into 4 risk-based classes. Class A to Class D, A being low risk and D with high risk, and B and C in between with low moderate and moderate high ratings respectively. In fact, the classification is addressed in rule number 4 of the IMDR, and the parameters for classifications are collated in a different schedule. It is called Schedule 1.
Okay, so that's good to know. So there is some guideline on how your products would be classified. So that point should be noted. Again, Schedule 1 of the IMDR, and also check out rule number 4. How will be the classification? So for IVDs, we have viewers right now who their focus is primarily on IVDs. How will their products be classified? Is it the same way, or is there a different classification system?
In fact, the same way. They also follow the same nomenclature of classes. Right? Criteria for classification will be very IVD specific. And these two criteria, that means for both MDs and IVDs, are separately specified in the first schedule of the rule.
And who decides on this, on the classification? Is it the manufacturer or the notified body?
Neither.
Okay.
Neither, in fact. Actually, that is a market difference. It is going to be decided by the Central Licensing Authority, that is DCGI, as compared to the practices existing elsewhere in the world, where the classification is determined by the manufacturer and or NBs. Our route is going to be totally different, wherein we don't have any say, only the CLA will decide. In fact, the list of devices that fall under the scope of IMDR is published on the CDSCO website, along with their respective classes. It makes the life easier for the manufacturer in the sense he can determine the applicability of the rule as well as the device class just by referring to the list on the web portal.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, it's Central Licensing Authority, also known as DCGI, that oversees the classification of devices. And also, if you're confused, check out a list that CDCSO has published on their website, and they have a list of products and respective risk classes. So if you have a product, a predicate there might be a match, and it'll be easier for you to classify. But if your product is not classified or is not part of that list, then perhaps you will need to seek government approval and have them get their help in classifying your product. So moving on, so you've mentioned DCGI and CDSCO, and I'll speak for our viewers. CDSCO has been a more common name that we have heard of as the authority. Can you tell us the difference and who's regulating what?
Sure. I'll try to outline the regulatory setup in India as far as pharma and devices are concerned. DCGI is the Drug Control General of India. He heads CDSCO. CDSCO, in other words, is his office, Central Drug Standard Control Organization. As you probably know, India is a republic with 29 states and 8 union territories. When it comes to drug and device control, we have state drug controllers in each state, as well as drug controller general at the central level. Both of these offices have specific duties and responsibilities. For example, for state level, they issue licenses for manufacture of lower risk medical devices, class A and class B, and issue licenses for sale of classes of all classes of devices within that state. Coming to the Central Drug Control Agency, CDSCO, headed by the DCGI, they issue licenses to import devices of all classes. So if anyone would like to export, a foreign manufacturer who would like to export, it is DCGI who they will have to approach. And also to manufacture devices of high risk category, which is C and D, class C and D. And they are also the authority to issue licenses for clinical investigation of devices and clinical performance evaluation of IVDs.
Okay, so again, I will summarize this because I feel this is a key point. The nomenclature is A, B, C, D, AB being low risk classes. So now if you have a low risk class and you also have a manufacturing facility in India, and you're manufacturing Class A and Class B products, you wouldn't go to federal level to get approval. You would actually have to get approval at the state level, which is very different than a lot of other markets. So note that. And then, but however, if you don't have a manufacturing facility in India, but you are a Class A, B, or C and D, then you would go to the federal level to get approval. So do point that needs to be noted because India does have this differentiation and has this dual level of certification, because you would at times may need to go to the state level for approval. So the device manufacturer, do they need to approach these offices separately to obtain licenses? How does it work? I mean, do we go to DCGI or CDSCO? Can you explain that?
No. When it comes to filing applications, all applications shall be submitted through the web portal of the central agency, that is CDSCO, irrespective of who the licensing authority is.
Okay, so
even for state licenses, you need to file applications at the central web portal.
Okay, so it's an e-submission, and so that sort of makes it easy, because as a foreign manufacturer, we don't have to worry about as the application, whom do we submit it to. It's through an e-portal and it's going through to CDSCO. Coming back to IVDs, can we quickly touch upon what are the different licenses that are required? Is it separate? Are the requirements very different for IVDs versus medical devices?
Under IMDR, for manufacturing medical devices in India, one needs to have manufacturing license or loan license. Then you need test license for, if you are going to manufacture in small quantities for testing or clinical investigation. And when it comes to foreign manufacturers who are interested only to export the products, they only need to get the import license through their authorized agent in India. That's what it is. So basically, these are the three different types of licenses that you have to get. Now, your question about MD versus IVD, it doesn't make any difference. Whether it is IVD or MD, this is what you have to follow. These are the licenses that you have to get.
Okay. So the rules are basically the same. You apply through the central web portal through CDSCO. The new regulations are called IMDRs. That's the reference for India's medical device regulations. So you need a manufacturing license or a loan license. What is a loan license?
Priya, loan license is something, it's a route wherein an approved local facility is used as your production site. So clearances can be easier and faster as there is no requirement for site inspection by the CLA. So for example, foreign manufacturing firm want to start their facility and they are not planning to invest anything here. So they can adopt this route. Only thing they need to find out a facility which can cater to their kind of production requirements and also who has got all the clearances and licenses in place.
Okay, got it. So loan license, a term, if you want to get use a facility in India, it's not your facility, but you're essentially loaning it. They're your contract manufacturer. They can also hold your licenses and you can get faster approval. So that's good to know. One tip. You mentioned, so moving on. So one of the new unique implementations is that of the notified bodies. And when we hear notified bodies, we think of EU regs and notified bodies there. Can you tell us what their role is in India and at what level will foreign manufacturers deal directly with these notified bodies?
Yeah. This is another new addition. We never have had the involvement of introduction of IMDR, training manufacturing license audit the facility. That said, in the case of Class A devices, it is required to be done only within 120 days after the issuance of license. Whereas for Class B, moving on, in Class C and D, the primary responsibility for inspection shall be that of the CLA. And they may choose to avail the services of NB to be part of the audit team along with the medical device officers from CLA, provided the NB have at least 2 years of experience in auditing Class A and Class B devices post registration with CLA. Here, registration is the registration of the notified body with CLA. Now, your question, when can they, at what point can the manufacturers or the importers can approach notified bodies? Under these arrangements, I guess there is little room for the applicant to approach NBs directly. The NBs are rather directed to carry out the audits of the applicants by the SLA or CLA as the case may be, except maybe in the case of Class A devices, where they have to get it audited within 120 days, wherein the onus might fall on the manufacturer to find out the notified body and get it done and give the report to the SLA.
Okay, so I know there was a lot of content there. So just to summarize, if we understand correctly, so you again have Class A, B, C, D. You have notified bodies, which is a new role in India, and the government's still deciding exactly how notified bodies will work because this is their first time partnering with notified bodies, but notified bodies will play a role in audits only, not really review of the application and issuing licenses. So they will review Class A and Class B products, but for Class C and Class D, the inspections and the audits will come through the actual central licensing authorities. So for those of you who are wondering the notified body role, that's what it is. Actually, moving on, let's move past the notified bodies because we have a lot more interesting questions left. What is so with January being the effective date, when is the earliest foreign manufacturers can start applying? Can we start applying, let's say in December, just to get ahead of the game?
You said foreign manufacturer.
Yes,
so if a foreign manufacturer who is only interested only to export devices to India, then they shall have to apply for the import license, of course. This they must apply through their authorized agent who has a valid license either to manufacture or sell wholesale or both in India. Now, if the foreign manufacturer has already have their authorized agent appointed in India and they hold import license under the current regulation, then that license can continue till its expiry date, or at least till July 31st of next year, whichever is later. New license applicants will have to wait till January 1st to submit their application to the Central Licensing Authority.
Okay.
That is DCGI.
Got it. So there's no way to get ahead of the game and try to say you cannot apply now. The regulations haven't gone into effect. So they go into effect January 1st. That's when you can apply. But that's good to know. So the government is giving us some time, because if you already are importing in India and you have these licenses, so you have till the day that the license expires to continue selling, and you can buy a lot of time. If let's say your license is expiring before July 31st of next year, then you have till July 31st of next year. So whatever the later date is, so that's good. So we can be a little more relaxed. Now, can we talk quickly on how to apply for import license? What's needed?
How to apply?
Yes.
Okay. Priya, there is a particular form called Form MD14. So the application shall be submitted in that form along with all the required attachments as per the class of the device. And these document requirements are listed in Schedule 4 of the IMDR. Also, the prescribed fee shall be paid. Upon successful scrutiny of the application, the SLA may cause an inspection of the manufacturing facility, which is the foreign manufacturing facility here. And for that also there is a prescribed fee that need to be paid. And all these fees, again, for your information, this is all this different fees applicable with respect to this regulation is mentioned in second schedule, Schedule 2. Moving on, upon successful completion of these steps, the license shall be issued subject to the requirement of whether or not to conduct the clinical investigation.
Okay, so three steps. So you have an application that we have to submit.
Yep.
The government may or may not do an inspection, so that's another step. Now, if you have a contract manufacturer in India, then you probably won't need inspection. But otherwise, as a foreign manufacturer, we're going to need inspection. There are fees associated with application and manufacturing inspection, the audit there. So okay, so then how long can it take for approval time? So if we have followed all these steps, what's our timeline for approval?
Yeah. Before that, let me just add one point here. Even for a local manufacturer, there is inspection, compulsory inspection.
Okay.
Class A and Class C and for Class D.
Okay.
And in the case of foreign manufacturer, they may sometimes do that inspection. That's what it says.
Okay.
So we do not know, but for manufacturer, it's a must. Okay. Now, your question about the timelines.
Yes.
An import license, the maximum ceiling given is 9 months after submitting the application, complete with all the required documents. That's for issuing the license. Earlier, there used to be a requirement for applying for registration of the foreign manufacturer firm, upon grant of which only application for import license was to have submitted. Now, under the new arrangement, it is only the import license that is required. Unfortunately, this brings in a saving of at least 3 months in expediting the statutory processes involved in obtaining all these statutory licenses.
So 9 months, I mean, that's significant. I mean, there are other countries with similar timelines. So we're looking at close to a year, because 9 months would mean, if I understand correctly, that there are no additional information requests from CDSCO. But in case there are, then you're extending that timeline, and we could be running into almost a year before approval. Right.
That could be, yeah. Unless we do our homework well and then submit it in the required form, it could induce further delay. Yes.
Great. Now, speaking of delays, two things that also makes the whole process more onerous is our local testing and clinical investigation. Can you just quickly touch upon these two? Does India require local testing? And let's forget about AB. Let's focus, on C and D. Because I know for low risk, clinical investigation is not going to be required, but what about higher risk? Is it mandatory? And if we are class C and D, then is there an exemption criteria for clinical investigation?
Yes. Yeah, in the one word answer is yes. The clinical investigation information is a must. But now, whether you need to do it in India, in other countries, is depending on, your positioning. I'll just explain that. If the device does not possess free sale certificate from one of the following countries, which is USA, EU, Canada, Japan, or Australia, then they would need to carry out clinical investigation in India. That is in the case of Class C and D devices. So that's very clear. So, which on the other way around, if you are a manufacturer from any of these countries, or you are a manufacturer from any other country but has got license and free sale certificate obtained from any of these countries, then the clinical investigation already done and presented as part of your technical file could be submitted here, and that is valid. And in the case of A and B devices, again, clinical investigation is required, or the published scientific data on safety and performance also will do. But this should be done. I mean, it is okay if this study has been done in the country of origin. You can submit that. In short, it matters if the device is already being sold in any of the above 5 countries. That is USA, EU, Canada, Japan, or Australia.
Okay, that's good to know. And so what about, I know, in our previous conversations, we had touched upon the regulations are the same for, the IMDRs apply to IVDs as well. That's clear. But as an IVD manufacturer, is there any special testing or any other requirements per se specifically that we should be aware of?
One thing I could notice in the regulation, wherein an additional requirement at the time of applying for import license or manufacturing license, in the case of IVDs, is a copy of performance evaluation report issued by the Central Medical Device Testing Laboratory or registered medical device testing laboratory. That need to be submitted along with the application for import license. This is not the case for MDs, medical devices.
Okay.
And for new IVDs of higher class, they will have to get their clinical performance evaluation done in India unless they are from, the 5 countries mentioned earlier.
Okay, so if you are an IVD company, then a copy of performance evaluation report. You need to have some medical device from the local test labs. Also, clinical performance evaluation done in India, unless you have data or you have approval from any of the 5 major markets. Got it. So before we switch to price control, do you have any tips for our foreign manufacturers on how to best prepare for the new regulations? Maybe you can just summarize it in maybe top 3, because then we want to touch upon price control before time's up.
Okay. Maybe I will touch upon the most important ones.
Sure.
First of all, you identify your device is falling in the published list. Not all the devices as of today, will come under the purview of the IMDR. So ensure that your device is the law calls for control of your device. Otherwise, you can place it the way you have been placing it before. And for check the current licenses. If it has got validity, then go ahead and then plan for shifting over to the new regulation only after the validity is over. Then also learn about the very documentation that is required. So do a thorough study of Schedule 4, wherein you will understand what are the different types of documents and the sub-documents therein. Most importantly, if you are selling in any of those 5 countries, be ready with your free sale certificate. If you do not have that, it's a must and should. So you need to have the free sale certificate issued from whichever authority there and have it handy. Also, you must, if you are a new entrant, find a suitable authorized agent, and you have to enter into a power of attorney arrangement as mandated in the Chapter 5 of the IMDR. And this need to be, authenticated through Indian Embassy of your country, or if you are in India, from a first-class magistrate here. Okay. So these are few things, and and also see that your quality management system is as per 13485 to 2003. You don't really require 2016.
Okay. So let's quickly touch upon price controls. It's been in recent discussions. Can we talk about, just in basic terminology, what is it? What are price controls? Not every country has it. A lot of countries do have it, not all. But so what are price controls, and what type of devices fall under price control?
Well, this has been a subject of worry. In India, there is a legislation called Essential Commodities Act. This is involved when the prices of a particular commodity or a class of commodity are so to be controlled. So the drugs, the medical device, if you ask me if the medical device come under its purview, it does not, but then drugs do. But as I mentioned at the beginning of this discussion, currently the devices which are notified, some 23 of them, they are also addressed as drugs because it is coming under drug law. So some of them fall under the category of essential drugs. And recently, these 2 devices, that is coronary stent and implantable orthopedic knee implant, these 2 have been brought into this list. So that's where government exercised the price control, in the sense the prices has been slashed significantly, by government intervention.
Got it. Well, thank you. So unless you are an orthopedic device company or have stents, price control is not something you have to worry about. And based on the government's assessment, it turned out that the people who were taking advantage of without having the prior to the price control regulation, it was the distributors that were taking advantage and getting a big cut, or the hospitals. So it wasn't necessarily impacting the manufacturer. So nothing that manufacturers should really worry about, but it should actually economically help manufacturers, because if the prices are controlled, more regions, smaller villages, and hospitals are going to request those products, and will be able to afford them. So there'll be more demand for these products. Thank you so much, Mr. Darley. This was very informative. For our viewers, well, the time is up. We actually have gone a minute above our time limit, but thank you again for joining us. Once you close the browser, you will see a very, very brief 2-question poll. Please fill that out. And if you have any questions for Mr. Darley, feel free to email. You can email us at deskdesk@regdesk.co, and we'll be happy to and get those questions answered for you. Thank you again, Mr. Darley.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity. Yes, thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.